welcome to Fox 29's News Now on this Monday morning. We're going to get started with some local news as the search for missing 5-year-old Dulce Maria Alavez enters its 8th day Monday. Fox 29's Lauren Johnson filed this report from Cumberland County.
Hey, good morning to you. So the weather last Monday, really nice. A lot of families out here enjoying that weather. Dulce was here with her little brother, her mother, another family member when she disappeared without a trace. And now the entire community here is trying to stand together with the family, letting them know they support bringing her home safely. No one's seen her since that happened last Monday, and tips continue to come in. This community continues to pray for her. Yesterday, a baseball game happening on this diamond where a makeshift memorial has been set up right behind home plate. The day before the game, a community vigil was held as family and friends, joined by complete strangers, prayed for her safe return home. Candles were lit in honor of little Dulce Alavez, the flickering of light shining bright on pictures of that little girl sporting her usual smirk and grin. The 5-year-old vanished from the park last Monday. A day later, police released a description of who they believe the kidnapper to be, a young man who took her to some van. This morning, a message from her uncle to whoever that person may be.
My mom and my sisters, every morning they wake up and they pray for her. Imagine somebody takes your family, and how would you feel? Be in our place. Like, we really want Dulce to come back because we really love her and we miss her.
Over the weekend, police continued to ask the public to be mindful of any signs they may notice if they think they come in contact with that little girl or a person that she may be traveling with. The reward now sits at $35,000 for information leading to finding her or information leading to the conviction or arrest of the person responsible for her disappearance. We continue to hear that no tip is too small. The phone number, 1-800-CALL-FBI.
Also developing overnight in West Philadelphia, 6 children have been taken to the hospital after a shock fire. Both broke out at the home on the 1200 block of 42nd Street shortly after rescue crews took children to shock and pulled to the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania. The extent of their injuries is unknown.
And ironically, being one of my old co-workers took the ladder off the truck, raised it up, and was assisting people down. My man just started throwing babies out the window. Wow. We was catching them.
The fire has since been placed under control. Also overnight, one person is dead after a home invasion on the 7100 block of Walker Street. Police say 2 people broke into a home and someone in the home started shooting, killing one of the suspects. The other suspect fled the scene with a gunshot wound. No one else inside the home was hurt. No arrests have been made at this time. And happening today, a mother charged with attacking her toddler daughter with a machete is due in court for a preliminary hearing. Last month, officers responded to the 5000 block of Masher Street in Olney after reports of a person screaming. Arriving officers found the 3-year-old girl on the street covered in blood. The toddler thankfully survived. 34-year-old Lauren Rodriguez has been charged with attempted homicide, endangering the welfare of a child, and aggravated assault. Also happening today, one of the accused co-conspirators of the GoFundMe scam is set to appear in a Burlington County court this morning. Mark D'Amico is due in court at 9 a.m. for a status conference. Prosecutors say D'Amico, his then-girlfriend Caitlin McClure, and veteran Johnny Bobbitt concocted the phony feel-good story back in 2017, duping thousands of people out of nearly $400,000. D'Amico pleaded not guilty to the charges. Bobbitt did plead guilty and was sentenced to 5 years probation. And the appeal trial for the engineer charged in the 2015 Amtrak derailment in Philadelphia begins today. 35-year-old Brandon Bostian is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the case. 8 people died as a result of that derailment, and 200 others were injured. Among those severely hurt was chef and friend to the show, Eli Culp. He was left with paralysis from the neck down. And in Sussex County, the trial resumes today for a former University of Delaware baseball player accused of multiple sexual assaults. On Friday, a 21-year-old woman testified she repeatedly told Clay Conway to stop touching her, saying she did not want to have sex with him. She is one of 6 women who say Conway is accused of assaulting them between 2013 and 2018. And in Newcastle County, officials are expanding a quarantine in an effort to stop those pesky spotted lanternflies. The quarantine now includes all of Newcastle County north of the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal. The Department of Agriculture says businesses must have permits to move certain items such as plants and lumber within or from the area. The invasive bugs feed on more than 70 plant species, and the public is urged to kill the bugs on site. And in related news, if you're heading outside, make sure to wear bug spray. A rare, potentially deadly mosquito-transmitted virus has spread from New Jersey and Delaware and is now confirmed in Pennsylvania. Eastern equine encephalitis, or triple E, was found in pheasants, horses, and wild turkey in Erie, Carbon, and Monroe counties. The virus is considered worse than West Nile when contracted by humans, and it's fatal in about 30% of cases. 2 more cases were also just confirmed in New Jersey, making it present in Atlantic, Union, and Somerset counties. It's also been confirmed in all 3 of Delaware's counties. And a scary scene in the Lehigh Valley this weekend when flames tore through a nursing home, forcing dozens to evacuate. The fire began yesterday morning on the 400 block of Blue Barn Road in Upper Wisconsin, spreading quickly through the building and across the community. 2 firefighters were injured in the fire. Emergency crews evacuated 82 residents and 5 staff members after the at times using ladders to rescue the building. Those living in the facility now have to find a solution while the building is repaired. Also in local news this morning, a Pennsylvania man says he was just kidding when police say he threatened to shoot up 2 central Pennsylvania schools.
I made a joke.
You made a joke? What was the joke?
About a shooting?
You joked about shooting up a school? 2 schools?
With no seriousness.
Police in Hazleton
What about the
outside
pipe
of
bombs, the
Wilkes-Barre
possible
say
diversion
the
that they say?
28-year-old
Anything there?
Christian Deal sent a message threatening 2 schools with a
Anything
mass
else you wanna
shooting
say?
and pipe bombs.
Students, principals,
After a day-long investigation, police
Sorry for
found
what?
Deal and arrested
Making a
him.
bad joke.
After telling news crews he was joking, he also said there was no seriousness
Why'd you do it?
behind
Why'd you make
the
a
school
joke?
shooting threat.
You joked about shooting up a school? 2.
And moving on to your Fox 29 weather authority. The Philadelphia area will kick off the first day of fall today, but with summer-like conditions. Temperatures will reach a high of around 92 degrees with partly cloudy skies. The forecast is expected to stay dry for the next several days with mostly sunny conditions. Temperatures will take a noticeable dip, though, tomorrow, back down to a more seasonable upper 70s on Tuesday before rising back to the mid-80s by Thursday. Here we have a look at current temperatures in our area, already up to the mid-70s in the Poconos, nearly 80 degrees over in Lancaster, PA, 76 degrees here in the city of Philadelphia, and down the shore we have nearly 80 degrees already in Wildwood, New Jersey, and Atlantic City. And looking ahead to our 7-day forecast, again we have that autumn heat today with a high of around 90 degrees or so and sunny skies. It won't be as hot tomorrow as temperatures take a notable dip, but those sunny and mild conditions will continue through the weekend with temperatures fluctuating in the 80s and a mix of clouds and sunshine. And don't forget to download the latest version of the Fox 29 Weather Authority app to have the latest And we are going to take you over now to the United Nations, where the General Assembly is beginning to arrive for a much anticipated conference. Stay with us.
That's a lot. No, it's okay now. It's just there was a lot of vibrations. But it's good. Yes.
We gotta go down. Okay.
Can't let too many people down here. Barking, got a barking. They've been here all the time.
Good morning, how are you?
My last name is Angola. She is from Angola. You are from Angola. I remember you the last time. I've seen your videos and your work. Has seguido el trabajo muy bien. Entonces, mi nombre Angola.
And we are going to switch you over now to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is making a statement before attending the Climate Change Summit. Stay with us.
It's a race we can win. The climate crisis is caused by us, and the solutions must come from us. We have the tools. Technology is on our side. Readily available technological substitutions already exist for more than 70% of today's emissions. And we have the roadmap, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement on climate change. And we have the imperative, undeniable, irrefutable science. The best science, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, tells us that any temperature rise about 1.5 degrees will lead to major and irreversible damage to the ecosystems that support us. But science also tells us it is not too late. We can do it. Limiting warming to 1.5 degrees is still possible. But it will require fundamental transformations in all aspects of society. How we grow food, use land, fuel our transport, and power our economies. We need to link climate change to a new model of development, a fair globalization, with less suffering, more justice and harmony between people and planet. Dear friends, there is a cost to everything, but the biggest cost is doing nothing. The biggest cost is subsidizing a dying fossil fuel industry, building more and more coal power plants, and denying what is plain as day, that we are in a deep climate hole, and to get out, we must first stop digging. After all, After all, it is common sense to give is it common sense to give trillions in hard-earned taxpayers' money to the fossil fuel industry to boost hurricanes, spread tropical diseases and heighten conflict? Is it common sense to build ever more coal plants that are choking our future? Is it common sense to reward pollution that kills millions with dirty air and makes it dangerous for people in cities around the world to sometimes even venture out of their homes? It is time to shift taxes from salaries to carbon and to tax pollution, not people. Chers amis, la communauté scientifique ne cesse de nous rappeler. Nous devons à tout prix réduire les émissions de gaz à effet de serre de 45% d'ici à 2030, atteindre la neutralité carbone d'ici 2050 et limiter la hausse de la température globale à 1,5 degrés Celsius d'ici à la fin du siècle. Une accélération forte des financements climatiques est donc nécessaire. Il est ainsi indispensable de reconstituer les ressources du Fonds vert pour le climat, tout comme il est essentiel que les pays développés respectent l'engagement pris de mobiliser d'ici 2020 100 milliards de dollars par an de fonds publics et privés afin de soutenir les pays en développement dans leurs efforts d'atténuation et d'adaptation. Car même si l'on réussit à baisser les émissions, les effets dramatiques du changement climatique sont déjà là et l'adaptation est donc devenue une priorité absolue et une condition essentielle pour augmenter la résilience des pays et des communautés et éviter la souffrance humaine. Je remercie les pays qui ont d'ores et déjà augmenté leurs engagements, en particulier ceux qui ont doublé leur contribution au Fonds vert pour le climat. J'en appelle à votre audace. Avançons vers une transformation planétaire de la finance, une finance compatible avec un monde neutre en carbone. Chers amis, ce sommet n'est pas censé résoudre tous nos problèmes du jour au lendemain, mais il doit donner l'élan nécessaire pour activement mettre en œuvre les objectifs des accords de Paris. La dynamique créée ici aujourd'hui doit guider nos prochaines rencontres. La conférence des Nations Unies sur le climat qui aura lieu en décembre au Chili et l'année prochaine, la conférence sur le transport durable à Beijing, la conférence sur les océans à Lisbonne, la conférence sur la biodiversité à Kunming et le sommet sur la nature à New York. N'ayons pas peur d'être ambitieux, n'ayons pas peur d'accentuer la pression et surtout n'ayons pas peur de sans cesse rappeler la vérité et la réalité de la situation. Adressons aux dirigeants politiques et aux acteurs des marchés le message suivant. La transition vers une économie verte aboutira à de meilleures conditions de vie, à de meilleurs emplois, à une meilleure santé, à une meilleure sécurité alimentaire, à davantage d'égalité et à une croissance durable. Si nous avançons ensemble, personne ne sera laissé de côté. Dear friends, science tells us that our current path we face at least 3 degrees Celsius of global heating by the end of the century. I will not be there, but my granddaughters will, and your grandchildren too. I refuse to be an accomplice in the destruction of their own and only home. I will not be a silent witness to the crime of dooming our present and destroying their right to a sustainable future. It is my obligation, our obligation, to do everything to stop the climate crisis before it stops us. Time is running out, but it's not too late. So let us heed the calls of wise leaders, religious, business, and especially young people who are taking to the streets to demand that we change our relationship with nature now. Let us lace up our running shoes and win the climate race for us all. Thank you.
Hello, New York City. This is the biggest climate strike in history.
there's no planet B, so we have to make our difference now.
This is the moment and the movement of our lifetime. Do you feel it?
We need to take part in this conversation right now.
We heard from youth yesterday all around the world, and today we're getting into action. We're getting into solutions.
The project I'm presenting to you today works with biology as a storage device.
We are building a climate solution, the one-stop solution for farmers.
We don't want fossil fuels anymore.
What the youth and grassroots movements are doing is absolutely essential.
We have had enough of talking. There's no more time to talk.
Listen to the science.
We have to keep doing this until the leaders of the world start actually making changes.
This is an emergency and our lives are at risk.
How many children will it take for adults to listen to scientists?
Here we go. As you can see from the film, it is indeed young people demanding a response for climate change around the world. And this past weekend, the youth had an opportunity to speak with the Secretary General. The SG now has the opportunity to showcase their views on the topic here with us. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Paloma Costa in the center, Anurag Saha Roy, and Greta Thunberg. Paloma, let me begin with you. You're a lawyer who leads youth activists and climate activists in Brazil, many of whom are on the front lines of this climate emergency. Why is this issue so urgent to you, and what is your ask of world leaders?
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for getting all of us here together. Yes, my name is Paloma Costa, and I am from Brazil. I am a social environmentalist defender, a bicycle activist, a climate educator, and a youth mobilizer. I have witnessed how indigenous, traditional communities, and other minority groups are being impacted by the climate crisis. You know, back in Brazil, a great indigenous leader recently said that indigenous people have been resisting since the beginning. What about us? Are we going to be able to resist? Well, youth are mobilized. We are not going to work with industries that deforestate. We are not going to be silent. We have already changed our habits, and you are not following us. Indigenous people have all of this knowledge and connection with our earth, and we still fail to listen to them. But they unite themselves to protect their territory. Why can't we do the same to protect our home? In the past few weeks, the world watched the Amazon fires with horror. I saw the whole world praying for our forests and our indigenous people fighting for survival. We don't need praying, we need acting. And the response we've seen is not enough. So I ask myself, do we need to see the Amazon burn to start doing something? I don't think so. Since my first climate strike with Greta here at COP24, 500 million trees have been destroyed in the Amazon. And people still come to me and ask if I am afraid to defend our forests. Well, as environmental defenders are in great risk, I would like to say that I am not afraid. I am afraid of dying by the climate crisis. We are living through a climate emergency, and it is affecting our food security, our health, our lives. And we have the solutions for both resiliency and mitigation. We live now in a world divided. While we have here the greatest brands, there are still people outside here and inside here as well asking themselves if the climate crisis is real or not. Well, it is. The Secretary General, he challenged the whole world. And I've been working closely with the UN to help build the Youth Climate Summit last Saturday with the Youth Working Group. I know everyone here is ready. I know that. Will you stop the talk so we can turn solutions into actionable commitments? Or should we wait until next year when we gather here together again? Well, if I want to ask something from our leaders, I will probably say that I want all nations to declare a climate emergency. So this will start being the #1 agenda for all leaders. My demand here is not a mere symbolic declaration, but a genuine commitment to the environment and to regional and traditional people who have protected the environment for centuries and are still being oppressed. I will keep educating youth, defending human and environmental rights, listening to my fellow youth and indigenous people here, to build the climate agenda in Brazil with no excuses. So I don't want to hear excuses here. Now it's your turn to make history and take urgent action to guarantee a safe future for all of us. Let's do this together. We are here now. It's our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma. Anurag, at the Youth Climate Summit on Saturday, you were selected as the winner of the Young Entrepreneurs Competition. Congratulations. Can you tell us more about what you're doing as an innovator to combat the climate crisis, and what do you think world leaders can do to support young entrepreneurs like yourself?
Hello, I'm Anurag, originally from India, and an entrepreneur currently based out of Singapore. And thank you for having me here today. Thank you for turning up here today. Like Paloma just said, it is true that we are in a climate emergency, and we, the youth, were caught in the middle. But fortunately for us, the youth are also the ones who are building the solutions to a lot of the climate change problems. Following a call by the SG's Office of Youth Envoy and the Office of Information and Communications Technology, during this last summer, my team and I, we worked on building a platform that allows farmers in remote communities of Africa who do not have a smartphone or who do not have internet to access high-quality weather updates. They need this because their economy is based on agriculture, and without these updates, this information, they can no longer survive because climate change has put them in a position where their agriculture is completely affected. Now, entrepreneurship and technological innovation, these are going to be the two major pillars if we are to build climate resilient systems, if we are to fight climate change without relying solely on government policy. Which is why it is important that the governments involve and incentivize the youth. And they bring out the innovators, they bring out the entrepreneurs, and we do the best that we can to bridge the digital divide. Like we already know, the technology is on the side of the youth, but not everybody has access to it. And the ones who don't have access to it are the ones most affected by climate change, the ones most vulnerable to the world. Now, my message to the leaders out here today, my message as a young entrepreneur, is that we are expecting support. We have had enough of action plans, enough of policies, enough of statements, commitments. What we need right now is we need active support. And by active support, what we mean is that we entrepreneurs, when we start a company, we need tax breaks. We need you to support us by streamlining processes. Starting a business is so difficult right now. Why? We need ease of doing business. We need startup grants. And this is what the youth are expecting. These young people, they're risking their careers, they're risking their stable jobs, all to build solutions that can save the planet Earth. And as the leaders of the world, the least that you guys can do is provide them with a conducive platform, a platform that helps them scale their solutions. And I don't think there's a lot to ask, right? That's the least that you can do. And when we are here today to support the youth and innovation and entrepreneurship. So let's come together and ensure that we do all that we can to support these young kids, I'm one of them, to build solutions that can save the earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anurag. Greta, your first climate strike was a lonely event a little over a year ago. And in the intervening time, you have sparked the interest of millions, literally, of children around the globe, demanding action for climate change. What's your message to world leaders today?
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today, that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable, and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Well, I would like to thank our three distinguished guests of this morning very much for their very eloquent testimony, and to say that what is amazing in today's youth movement is not only that they are living the gaining of conscience, the raising of awareness, making sure that the whole world becomes committed to climate action, but that they are also on the ground working to provide solutions. And we heard testimonies that are very important about what young people are doing to do what needs to be done in order for climate action to be rooted in the action across the world. And so I believe it's the duty of all decision makers in the world not only to listen to the voice of young people and to do what they ask us to do, but also to support them in their own action for climate action around the world. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary General, and for your powerful remarks. Thank you, Anurag, and Paloma, and Greta. Thank you so much. And now I'd like you to watch a personal message by His Holiness Pope Francis.
La cumbre sobre la acción climática ONU 2019. Quisiera dar las gracias al secretario general de las Naciones Unidas, el señor Antonio Guterres, por la convocatoria de este encuentro, así como por haber atraído la atención de los jefes de Estado y de Gobierno, de toda la comunidad internacional y de la opinión pública mundial, sobre uno de los fenómenos más graves y preocupantes que está viviendo nuestra época, el cambio climático. Se trata de uno de los principales desafíos que debemos afrontar, y para ello la humanidad está llamada a cultivar tres grandes cualidades morales: honestidad, responsabilidad y valentía. Con el Acuerdo de París del 12 de diciembre de 2015, la comunidad internacional tomó conciencia de la urgencia y necesidad de dar una respuesta colectiva para colaborar en la construcción de nuestra casa común. Sin embargo, pasados 4 años de aquel acuerdo histórico, se observa cómo los compromisos contraídos por los Estados todavía son muy flojos y están lejos de alcanzar los objetivos previstos. Junto a tantas iniciativas, no solo por parte de los gobiernos, sino de toda la sociedad civil, es necesario preguntarse si existe una verdadera voluntad política para destinar mayores recursos humanos, financieros y tecnológicos a fin de mitigar los efectos negativos del cambio climático y ayudar a las poblaciones más pobres y vulnerables, que son las que más lo sufren. Aunque la situación no es buena y el planeta sufre, la ventana para una oportunidad está
My apologies. As you can see, we're having some technical difficulties with His Holiness's message. We're hoping to get it restarted momentarily. Stand by. We'll hope to bring you the rest of his message at a later moment, but at this point, let's move forward. The Secretary General has asked member states to come ready to share with us their plans for enhancing ambition by 2020 and reaching a carbon-neutral world by 2050. We will now hear from 4 leaders ready to announce their ambitious goals and plans. I encourage all member states to keep their interventions to no more than 3 minutes and all other participants to 2 minutes. An ambitious plan can be presented in that time. I would request all to respect those time limits as we can hear from all invitees to the summit. I will return to the stage to visually remind speakers that time is of the essence. And with that, I would like to now invite to the stage Her Excellency Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand. Prime Minister, please tell us your plan.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou a malo ni. Your Excellencies, recently I visited the remote atolls of Tokelau in the South Pacific. With a population of 1,500 people that is only accessible by boat, they have a story not often heard, but a message that must be shared. It's a message underscored by their new coastal walls, which are already toppling over as a result of the assault by the sea, by the seaside burial grounds, which are eroding and shifting, and by the children who tell you they are worried about the future of their home. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a message of urgency, one the Secretary General himself heard when he visited the Pacific recently. But if we are to overcome the extraordinary threat that climate change poses, we must all start with an honest appraisal of ourselves. Although New Zealand accounts for only 0.17% of global total emissions, our gross emissions have increased roughly 23% since 1990. But also, as with many here, things are starting to turn around. There is hope. Our gross emissions peaked in 2006. Over 80% of our electricity already comes from renewable hydro and wind, and we have begun an ambitious agenda. We have introduced to Parliament the Zero Carbon Bill, the purpose of which is to ensure New Zealand lives within the threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming, necessary to avoid catastrophic weather events for our Pacific neighbours. We are strengthening our emissions trading scheme to more effectively price climate pollution. We aim to plant 1 billion trees by 2028. We have stopped issuing any new permits for offshore oil and gas exploration. In their place, we're investing in green hydrogen, biofuels, and the goal of 100% renewable electricity generation by 2023. We're making electric and cleaner cars more affordable. We're investing heavily in rail, trains, buses, walking and cycling infrastructure. We've established a $100 million green investment fund to help shift private investment towards the zero carbon economy of the future. And we've created a $300 million fund aimed at supporting climate mitigation and adaptation in the Pacific. And we've done all of that in just 2 years. Our business community is stepping up with a Climate Leaders Coalition that together represents fully 60% of New Zealand's gross emissions. Our farming leaders have made their own commitment to cutting emissions as a result of food production. Over the next 5 years, we will collaborate to build systems that every farmer will be able to use to measure, manage and reduce their own farm's emissions. We are determined to show that New Zealand can and will be the most sustainable food producer in the world. And we will continue to lead international collaboration through the Global Research Alliance on agricultural greenhouse gases. Mr. Secretary-General, the situation is stark, but New Zealand will play our part in the global effort. It will not be easy, but our generation, we have it within our grasp not just to prevent the worst, but to build the best possible world for the generations to come. For Tokelau, for the Pacific, for all of us. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
I would now like to invite to the stage Her Excellency Hilda Heine, President of the Republic of the Marshall Islands.
Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, Yahweh, good morning. As President of a low-lying coral atoll nation, I stand before you as a representative of the most climate-vulnerable people on Earth. We are also one of the most ambitious countries when it comes to the global fight against the climate crisis. Mr. Secretary General, in the spirit of the Paris Agreement and in line with your call to every country, we have already submitted a second and more ambitious nationally determined contribution, as well as a decarbonization strategy to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Other countries must now follow our lead. Yesterday, 15 countries of the I Ambition coalition led by the Marshall Islands issued a statement on, quote, uniting behind the science to step up ambition by 2020, unquote. And the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which we chair, has also shown its determination to lead from the front. We are now calling on others to join us, including by joining yesterday's statement. Excellencies, we are far from staying within the 1.5-degree limit set by the Paris Agreement. Falling short would mean the greatest failure of humanity that we have ever seen. As the Global Commission on Adaptation has said, not enough is being done to adapt our world to the impacts that we have already locked in, let alone the worst that would yet to come. I join fellow Pacific Island Forum leaders in affirming that the climate crisis remains the single greatest threat to our regional security. That is why my government has submitted a resolution to our Parliament to declare a national climate crisis, including to highlight the special circumstances we face as a low-lying coral atoll nation. We are also developing a landmark national adaptation plan to shore up our own future. 5 years ago, my baby granddaughter, Mother Filipinam, was on this very stage. I am here for her and for all the children of the Marshall Islands. As a president, mother, and grandmother, I want to ensure that women and youth have a voice in decision-making that shapes their future. That is why the Conquest Pledge is important. I call on every leader that have not yet signed it to do so. The summit must be the moment we choose survival over selfishness, communities over coal, and planet over profits. It must be about climate justice. Mr. Secretary General, your call is clear, brave, and timely. To sustain action into the long term, next year countries must submit their plans to increase ambition by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. This is the lens through which history will judge this summit and all of us. The time has come for leaders to do just that. Lead. Komoltada, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I now invite to the stage His Excellency Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India.
Namaste.
Good morning.
Excellencies.
Excellencies.
मैं ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट समिट के आयोजन के लिए
I thank
UN
Secretary General for organizing the Global Climate Action Summit.
पिछले वर्ष Champion of the
After
Earth
having received the Champion of the Earth award last year,
UN में मेरा
this
ये
is
पहला
my
संबोधन
first opportunity to address the United Nations.
और ये भी सुखद संयोग है
And it is a happy
कि न्यूयॉर्क
coincidence
दौरे में मेरी पहली
that
सभा
the subject of my
climate विषय
first
पर हो
meeting
रही है।
in New York is climate.
Excellencies,
Excellencies,
climate change को लेकर दुनिया भर में
various efforts
अनेक प्रयास
are
हो रहे
being made by different countries
लेकिन
to
हमें ये
fight
बात
climate
स्वीकारनी
change.
होगी
But we must
कि
accept
गंभीर चुनौती
that
का
if
मुकाबला
we
करने
have
के
to
लिए
overcome a serious
उतना नहीं
challenge
किया
like
जा रहा
climate
है
change, then
जितना
what we
कि
are doing at the moment
होना
is
बहुत
just
अनिवार्य है।
not enough.
आज जरूरत है
What is needed today
एक comprehensive approach
is
की
a comprehensive
जिसमें
approach
education,
which covers education, values,
और लाइफस्टाइल से
and
लेकर के लिए उतना नहीं किया जा रहा है जितना कि होना बहुत अनिवार्य है। आज जरूरत है एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव अप्रोच की जिसमें एजुकेशन, वैल्यू और लाइफस्टाइल से लेकर डेवलपमेंट फिलोसॉफी भी शामिल है। आज जरूरत है बिहेवियरल चेंज के लिए एक विश्वव्यापी जन आंदोलन खड़ा करने की। प्रकृति का सम्मान और नेचुरल रिसोर्स का संरक्षण ये हमारी परंपरा और वर्तमान प्रयासों का हिस्सा रहा है।
Please, sir.
Need, not greed, has been our guiding principle. और इसलिए आज भारत इस विषय पर सिर्फ बात करने नहीं बल्कि एक व्यवहारिक सोच और रोड मैप के साथ आया है। We believe that an ounce of practice is worth more than a ton of preaching. हम भारत में फ्यूल मिक्स में नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल की हिस्सेदारी बढ़ा रहे हैं। हम 2022 तक रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी में अपनी कैपेसिटी को 175 गीगावाट तक ले जा रहे हैं और आगे हम इसे 450 गीगावाट तक ले जाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। हम अपने परिवहन क्षेत्र में ई मोबिलिटी को प्रोत्साहन दे रहे हैं। हम पेट्रोल और डीजल में बायोफ्यूल की मिक्सिंग की बड़ी मात्रा में बढ़ोतरी कर रहे हैं। हमने 150 मिलियन परिवारों को क्लीन कुकिंग गैस कनेक्शन दिए हैं। हमने वाटर कंजर्वेशन, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग और वाटर रिसोर्स डेवलपमेंट के लिए मिशन जल जीवन शुरू किया है और अगले कुछ वर्षों में इस पर लगभग $50 बिलियन का खर्च करने की हमारी योजना है। एक्सेलेंसीज, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच की बात करें
And that is going to do it for us today at Fox 29's News Now. Be sure to catch us again tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m., and follow us at fox29.com, as well as our mobile app and across social media. And thank you for joining us this morning.